How do you see this victory, sir?
I see this victory as foretelling that in future direct contests between Congress and the BJP, the Congress has an even chance of defeating the BJP in future state elections.
Are you, are you emphasizing the word state? Are you emphasizing the word state? Because what we've been debating is whether you can transpose what you do in a state election nationally. We've seen in Karnataka itself, sir, the state votes very differently, state and national.
All right, if you have completed your question. This is a state election, and therefore I'm advisedly restricting it to state elections. This is also a state election that is not coinciding with a Lok Sabha election. I think the dynamics are very different when a state election coincides with a Lok Sabha election, and the dynamics are admittedly different when there's a standalone Lok Sabha election. That's why I carefully chose my words and said, in a direct state election where the two poles are the Congress and the BJP, we have proved that the Congress has an even chance, if not a better than even chance, of defeating the BJP.
But the reason you had a good chance this time round, Mr. Chidambaram, is also because the BJP was in government and there was anti-incumbency against the local state government. In the next three big elections, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, the Congress is in government, the anti-incumbency is against the Congress. In Rajasthan in particular, Mr. Gehlot and Sachin Pilot are at loggerheads. Your party hasn't been able to resolve that. In Chhattisgarh, you got a T.S. Singhdio, Bhupesh Baghel fight. And in Madhya Pradesh, where you actually did win, Mr. Scindia went away. So could this just be one big day for the Congress, and there's a lot of challenges that lie ahead?
Please don't recycle old arguments which are discredited. For example, before the Karnataka election, you said the same thing about the Karnataka Pradesh Congress Committee. You said there's a rivalry between two top leaders. There are factions in the KPCC. They cannot work together. They will fight over who the candidate should be. They will fight over ticket distribution. You said the same thing 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, and I remember it vividly. You say that in every election, where the Congress is on the back foot and the BJP seems to be in the ascendant, then of course everything is wrong with the Congress.
Mr. Chidambaram, what's not an old...
But when the Congress is in government and is defeated...
But Mr. Chidambaram, what's not an old argument is the sheer fact that your local leadership seems to have taken the lead and done it for you. It happened in Himachal, where you ran a hyper-local campaign, where your national leadership practically stayed away. In this, they assisted your local leadership, which was very, very strong. Would you reckon that's the model now you need to take to the other states as well?
In a state election which does not coincide with the Lok Sabha election, it is a state leadership which must be in the forefront. We have done this in the past. We may not have done it in the recent past, but we are doing it now in Himachal and Karnataka. This is a good model. This is a tried and tested model. It should be allowed to work.
You're a key part of the brain trust of the Congress camp. What, according to you, is the lesson that you've learned from Karnataka, from Himachal Pradesh? What do you think is a replicable model which the Congress can take to other head-on-head fights with the BJP?
Yes, thank you. The first thing is, the basic organization must be intact. Even if it is a little inert, if it is not very active, as long as the basic organization is intact. We have a district committee, we have a block committee, and we have sub-block committees, mandal committee or village committees. If the basic organization is intact, that organization can be rejuvenated on the eve of an election. Say 6 months before the election, it can be rejuvenated. In Karnataka, what we learned was it could be rejuvenated by an inspiring activity like Bharat Jodo Yatra. It can be rejuvenated by committed local leadership which is focused on winning an election. But where the basic organization is not intact, it has either crumbled or disappeared, it will be difficult. And I'm not even talking about such situations. I'm talking about the Himachal Karnataka lesson, which was a lesson I learned many, many years ago when I joined the party. The basic organization is intact. It can always be rejuvenated and inspired in the 6 months to 12 months in the run-up to the election.
Why does... Go ahead.
But what changes, therefore, the big question between now and April, May 2024? You see, what you're saying makes eminent sense for a state election. But at the end of the day, there's a general election in less than 12 months from now. Last time round, in Karnataka, the BJP won 26 out of 28 seats. Do you concede that challenging, therefore, the BJP in a general election now is much more difficult than a state election? In a general election, you will need to not just rejuvenate organization, but also have a credible leadership, which is effective to take on the BJP's might.
All right. Okay, I'll answer that question. But let's go up from here to March 2024. Then I'll answer April, May 2024. From here to March 24, we have state-specific elections. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, I think Meghalaya or something.
Mizoram.
About Meghalaya, because that's a peculiar situation with regional parties. Mizoram. Mizoram. There are peculiar situation with a number of state regional parties. In all these states, we must ensure that in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Telangana, the basic organization is intact. We should put that organization in place immediately. Wherever there are gaps, those gaps must be filled and the rejuvenation can start. That's one. Now we go to April, May. The challenges are greater, but please remember the opportunities are also greater. The challenges are against a formidable election machine called BJP. The opportunity is 10-year incumbency, an indifferent and deteriorating economy, rampant unemployment, a diminishing labor force participation rate, and there are conflicts which are being suppressed from public view, public awareness, but these conflicts will be explained on the western border, on the eastern border, on the northern border, and above all, crony capitalism, which has left vast millions poor, if not poorer, and a small number of people have made more money than ever before. In 1 year, people have made lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees, whereas the vast majority are either as poor as they were 3-4 years ago or have become poorer. So the opportunities are greater, the challenge is also greater.
Mr. Chidambaram, two questions. Where does Nitish Kumar's efforts to bring the opposition together go from here, from a Congress lens, on the back of this big Congress victory? A lot of people in the third front feel with the Congress now winning Karnataka, they would become more intractable, less flexible, and therefore this may impede the efforts to bring India's opposition together.
Is that your secret desire, that the Congress should become intractable?
I'm asking a question.
Why do you attribute...
This is what K.C. Tyagi said yesterday. We had a JDU leader, K.C. Tyagi. This is exactly what he said. I'm just telling you what the opposition, what the third front thinks, but I want to hear what you think, sir. That's why I asked you the question.
All right, I'm asking. I'm answering. I have not heard anyone in the last 6 or 7 hours saying that the Congress will become more intractable. In fact, what I gathered on television was that the leadership of the Congress has once again clearly expressed itself and said the non-BJP party should come together. We are fully supportive of non-BJP parties coming together. If Mr. Nitish Kumar or Mr. Sharad Pawar or someone else takes an initiative, we will welcome that initiative. let the non-BJP parties come together, meet more often, have more conversations, and I think things will become clear. There's no reason to think that the Congress party will become more intractable. In fact, the Congress party will become more reasonable, more flexible, and more accommodative, because we have learnt our lesson that the opposition party should come together. The lesson we learned on the eve of 2004, a lesson we learned only 20 years ago. We have relearned that lesson.
You know, because in a way, from what you are saying, would I be right in saying, therefore, that maybe 2024 will be Mr. Modi and the Labharti schemes of this government, which they claim have been very effective, versus the Congress without necessarily having one leader, but talking of guarantees. You know, you spoke of a minimum income guarantee before 2019, it didn't really work. In Karnataka, you all gave various guarantees. Government the BJP described them as revdis, but people embraced them. Am I seeing 2024 revdi versus, Labharti versus guarantee?
No, I don't know what Labharti means.
Beneficiaries.
Mr. Modi's dictionary. In Mr. Modi's dictionary, if he gives a welfare measure, it is a welfare measure. If the opposition offers a welfare measure, it becomes a freebie. In his view, the same thing can be looked at it differently. But all that can be dismissed. The people are not such fools. The people understand which party is making which promise and which party is capable of implementing the promise. Now, we have implemented promises which we made in the UPA regime. We may have made it on the eve of the election. We may have made it during the course of the UPA 10 years. But every promise that we made, we implemented.
No, not true. Not necessarily true, sir. With due regard, you pushed for old pension scheme. You won an election in Himachal a few months ago. You are struggling to implement it because you know that it's not easy. You see, these promises that you all make...
No, but does Mr. Chidambaram, as former finance minister, personally agree with wanting to bring the old pension scheme back? As former FM in charge of our finances, would you advocate the old pension scheme?
Mr. Chidambaram, you're on mute.
Go ahead. You don't have to elaborate upon it, both of you. Let me answer your question.
Please
both of you are speaking at the same time. Now, the old pension scheme was promised by the Himachal government. The Himachal government has not resiled from that promise. In fact, the Himachal government is taking it forward in a systematic manner. And I sincerely hope they will be able to fulfill the promise. But look at the fallout. Look at the fallout is the BJP and Prime Minister Modi and his team, which were stoutly opposed to the old pension scheme, have now constituted a committee under Mr. Somanathan, the Finance Secretary, to find a reasonable way in which most of the elements of the old pension scheme can be absorbed into the new pension scheme. It is because of the Himachal Congress Committee's promise and the Himachal government's efforts to restore the old pension scheme that we have...
No, but are these promises, Mr. Chidambaram, revdi or not? As a former finance minister, your government was opposed. You brought in this new pension scheme. So, I mean, it seems election ke liye kuch bhi karega, vote ke liye kuch bhi karega. You'll do anything to get votes.
Wait a minute. Get your facts right, please. The new pension scheme was introduced on 1st of January 2004 by the Vajpayee government. Please get your facts right first. We came into government in May. The new pension scheme had already been announced and implemented. We carried it forward. I still believe it makes a lot of economic sense. Will you allow me to complete the answer? It makes a lot of economic sense to have a funded pension scheme. The difference between OPS and UPS is one is unfunded, one is funded. Now the government of India has been forced to constitute a committee in which some way the pension scheme can be funded, but it can still avoid the burden of the old pension scheme. So let's wait for the outcome.
Okay.
People are beginning to think. There's no reason why it should be, just a moment please, there's no reason why it should be famine or feast. It should be this or that. If you can find a third way, what is wrong with the third way, which is economically viable and it satisfies the employees? What is wrong with that? If I was in government, if we were in government, if the employees were adamant about an old pension scheme and the bureaucrats were adamant about a funded pension scheme, the right way is to find a way in which both interests, both views can be accommodated. What is wrong with that?
So what does the verdict of Karnataka mean for brand Rahul Gandhi, which is coming for a lot of beating in recent past on the back of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, some effort made to revive the brand in the seats where the Bharat Jodo Yatra went from. The Congress has done well with the 70% plus strike rate. From the BJP's perspective, Modi versus RG is exactly what they'll want, because they'll want that it become more and more personalized between Mr. Gandhi and Prime Minister Modi. Where does this leave brand Rahul Gandhi in the build-up to 2024 from your prism, Mr. Chidambaram?
Well, I'll give you a serious answer and I will also add a lighter remark.
Nice.
What it means is the Bharat Jodo Yatra showed that Mr. Rahul Gandhi has a grit and determination to go through a grueling yatra traversing about 3,500 or 4,000 kilometers. Few Indian politicians can go through that kind of exercise. So hats off that he demonstrated his grit, determination and staying power. Now what the Karnataka election, unlike, just a moment, why are you so anxious to interrupt the answer? In the Karnataka election, unlike Mr. Modi, who held these glitzy, high-sounding rallies and road shows, Mr. Rahul Gandhi stuck to the knitting, kept to the basics. The basics were local issues, corruption, crony capitalism, unemployment, and maladministration. He stuck to the knitting for almost 25 days, and he allowed the local leadership to share the limelight, even take the lead. That, I think, is a far better model which has proved successful than Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah and Mr. Nadda's glitzy, high-powered, high-money-powered campaign.
You had a lighter angle to your answer as well. You said, I assume that's the serious part of the answer. Let's now hear the lighter part.
I hope that the Karnataka, I'll tell you, the Karnataka election will make many of the media persons remove their biased lenses.
Okay, I don't know whether that's a lighter answer, but Preeti, go ahead.
Mr. Chidambaram, you know, running up to 2024, while your party and the opposition is making noises about the caste census, after what you've seen a state election go, do you realize that non-traditional vote banks, which were acquired earlier, clearly by the BJP, like women, La Bharati beneficiaries, is the way to go?
No, the caste census is only an extension of the socio-economic census that the UPA did. The UPA announced in Parliament and did a socio-economic census. That report is lying in the files of the government. The government won't disclose it. Today, if there is a clamor for a caste census so that beneficiaries can be better identified and benefits can be better directed, what is wrong with the caste census?
Interesting, you know, what we are seeing is possibly the shape of what the Congress will do with someone who's sort of deeply involved with the Congress's strategy. But Mr. Chidambaram, how, you know...
He hasn't congratulated us for our post-poll numbers, Mr. Chidambaram. I hope you've been watching our coverage. We kind of gave more numbers initially. Many in the Congress also weren't willing to believe.
Let me just, before he comments on that, he watches us very closely. I keep getting WhatsApps. Rajdeep, this was right, wrong. I mean, Mr. Chidambaram is a very hard taskmaster. You only watch us, right? Be honest.
When I saw your numbers, I think I spoke to either Rahul or Rajdeep and said, I hope your numbers are true. I think when Rahul messaged me saying your famous victory is due, I said, let the famous victory come and I'll join your channel.
Good. You mean to say if you had lost, you wouldn't have joined? That's bad, right? If you'd lost, would you have come?
No, I would have joined. I would have answered all your questions. I know your questions would have been more hostile, but I would have still answered your hostile questions.
Okay, let me ask.
No, but he finally has something to smile about. You know, in the Congress, they haven't had anything to smile about and celebrate for quite a while. A big state like this.
Absolutely. And the other thing that Mr. Chidambaram does, I believe, nowadays is watch the IPL very religiously. So, Mr. Chidambaram, who are you tipping to win the IPL? Who's your team? You're a Chennai man?
Well, I'm not biased in favor of the Chennai team. The surge, the late surge of the Mumbai Indians has surprised me, but I still think that the Gujarat Titans have an edge.
Alright, interesting. So, very interesting.
Gujarat Titans have the edge.
So he's looking for a Surya Kumar Yadav who will give momentum to the Mumbai Indians.
In politics as well, the Gujarat Titans would like to think they have the edge in the big IPL, Indian Political League finals for 2024. If you were an IPL team, Mr. Chidambaram, what would the Congress feel like and think that it is like at this moment in the IPL?
And who's your Surya Kumar Yadav?
Do you have one?
Oh, we have many Surya Kumar Yadavs, except that they are at the state level. They don't get the kind of media exposure that they deserve. There are very many articulate people, very many intelligent people, very qualified people. I can name them. They are highly educated, highly committed, very committed to the ideas of secularism, equality, liberty, free speech, constitutional values, a functional parliament, etc. Except that the media has become so narrowly focused and so biased. I'm sorry, I'm not pointing out fingers at anyone. Your media should drop your colored lenses. Look upon Mr. Modi as another Prime Minister. He may have been a 10-year Prime Minister, but look upon him as a Prime Minister. How did you view Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi and Vajpayee? View him as a human being who's successfully led his party, won an election, run a government, good, bad, indifferent, and one day he will lose an election or he will retire. It will happen to everybody. So why do you treat Mr. Modi as a demigod? And why are you so scared of Mr. Modi that you won't ask him questions?
Okay, you know, Mr. Chidambaram, I think you've as always,
he's hit a few hard blows.
He's hit a few hard
like
blows.
Surya Kumar Yadav himself today, and he has every reason to.
You know,
the Congress batted like a sky today. Thank you very much, sir. Keep watching India Today.